The ancient historians, such as the Roman historian Tacitus, regarded the land of Canaan, Judea, Palestine, and now the land that is modern Israel, as the northeasternmost extension of Africa. In Tacitus's own words, when giving the background on the famous city of Jerusalem and the origin of the Jews, he says the following: "The Jews are said to have been refugees from the island of Crete, who settled in the remotest corner of Libya in the days when, according to the story, Saturn was driven from his throne by the aggression of Jupiter." The last portion of that phrase is a poetic way of speaking about an astronomical occurrence as a timestamp of when an event happened, that being the settlement of the Jews in the remotest corner of Libya. Here, Tacitus plainly states that Judea is the remotest corner of Libya. Libya is the Greek term for the continent of Africa. The Greek historian and geographer Hecataeus of Miletus, born around 550 BC and dying around the year 476 BC, illustrates this fact in his map of the known world. Here's another map which shows that Palestine is the remotest northeastern extension of Africa. This is the world according to the idea of Herodotus, copied from Major Reynold, London, published 4th of June, 1819, by Robert Wilkinson. Take a look at the picture on your screen. This family's complexion mirrors that of the bowl of olives with its various shades of brown. This is historically accurate olive skin tone. On the modified Fitzpatrick scale of 0 to 7, 0 being an albino and 7 representing a Sudanese person, olive skin tone would be type 4 to type 7. For example, the Kingdom of Adel is located in modern Somaliland. In Volume 1 of Leo Africanus's The History and Description of Africa, page 52, he wrote the following: "The people of Adel are the color of an olive, being warlike, notwithstanding that the greatest part of them want weapons." In James Pritchard's Researches into the Physical History of Mankind, Volume 1, page 140, published in 1826, he wrote the following: "The former are the copper-colored nations of America and Africa, the latter the olive-colored races of Asia. In the deepness or intensity of color, we find every shade or gradation from the black of the Senegal Negro or the deep olive and almost jet black of the Malabars and some other nations of India to the light olive of the northern Hindus." Page 308. The Abyssinians are of a black or a dark olive color approaching to black, but of fine form and handsome features. Page 361. But we ought not entirely to pass by the circumstance that the Abyssinians, though of Arabian origin, have a dark olive complexion in Africa, or those instances in which it appears that the genuine descendants of Arabs are nearly black. The word Arab directly implies Arabia, Western Asia, but the larger and more populous part of the Arab world is North Africa. White Africa, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. About the topic of race. White. A person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. On page 363 of Jared Diamond's book, Guns, Germs, and Steel, he wrote the following: "Whites, ranging from Egyptians and Libyans to Moroccans, occupied Africa's north coastal zone and the northern Sahara. Those North Africans would hardly be confused with blue-eyed, blonde-haired Swedes, but most lay people will still call them whites because they have lighter skin and straighter hair than peoples to the south termed blacks. On page 364, there is a map of Africa with the northern part labeled whites, separated from the rest of the continent labeled blacks by an artificially drawn dotted line. Honorary whites and the slave trade. Why are some black Africans considered white Americans? Modern slavery still exists in the portion of Africa labeled as White Africa by the U.S. Census Bureau, the same that is dominated by Arab culture. CNN. In Mauritania, there are several ethnic groups living side by side. The white Moors, lighter-skinned Berber people who speak Arabic and have traditionally owned slaves. Most men wear light blue shirts called buboes, which have ornate designs on the chest. White Moors are the power class in Mauritania and control more wealth than any other group. Some, however, live in poverty. It's not uncommon to find a white Moor living in a tent only slightly larger than that of his or her slaves. Morocco World News Report. 85,000 people live in modern slavery in Morocco. Arab Reform Initiative. Invisibility and Negrophobia in Algeria. The Guardian. What's in a Name? How the Legacy of Slavery Endures in Tunisia. Time. The Libyan slave trade has shocked the world. Here's what you should know. Time. Egyptian immigrant wants to be reclassified as black. Mustafa Hefni feels he's been black his whole life. The U.S. government doesn't agree. Dr. Mustafa Hefni's fight continues on to this day. He has even written a book on it entitled, I Am Not a White Man, but the U.S. government is forcing me to be one.
I am a black Egyptian. My father is much darker than I am. My mother is lighter than I am. In Egypt, people are identified by the religion first, not the race. So in Egypt, if you are Christian, you are a minority person. But if you're black, you're not a minority person. You are a part of the mainstream society. And I came from this background. And in Egypt, you identify as Arab and as Muslim. And in this country, when I first came, I identified myself as Arab American and Muslim first. And gradually, I became to identify myself as black. I came to the U.S. in 1978. And I became U.S. citizen in 1985. When I became a U.S. resident, I was told by the Immigration and Naturalization that I am white. And I told them that I'm black, and they said, no, in this country, you are white. All Arabs in this country, all Arab immigrants are white. I didn't pay much attention in the beginning to this, because in the Arab world, we identify with our ethnicity first as Arabs, and then with the race second as black or white or whatever. But in this country, you identify with your racial group first and then with your ethnicity second. Gradually, I became black first and Arab second. And I rejected my white classification publicly for the first time in 1987, in February, as a panelist in a function sponsored by the Association of the Study of Black Life and History in Detroit. I said that I belong to two minority groups. I'm Arab American and Black American, and I'm racially black and ethnically Egyptian. I was harassed by my employer right after that. I work for a white school district. The superintendent is white, all the associate superintendents are white, even though that we provide services to 30% black population. But the organization is white and the approach is very white. The attitude towards me changed completely after I went out publicly and rejected my white classification. One coworker came to me and told me, a white coworker came to me and told me right after the function that he met with the superintendent, and if I don't keep my mouth shut, my educational career is over. He said, you have nothing to do with these people. You have a history and a culture. These people came from the jungle. You have nothing to do with them. These people lie and steal. When I see one of them in my neighborhood, I call the police.
Al Jazeera. Why are some black Africans considered white Americans? Sudanese Americans do not fit neatly into the existing racial classifications of the American society. The picture you are looking at now is that of podcaster Amro Fudel, aka Myron Gaines, a white Sudanese Arab who hates black Americans.
Like a girl that they took serious, like it was his girl at one point, 100% off limits.
Bro, even if it is a 304, I'm still like,
okay, so don't want guys.
I don't want
to. Some guys are different about it. Like some dudes are like, yeah, this is gonna be funny. Eskimo Brothers is for a funny story and shit. But and then some guys are like, hell fucking no. I've noticed with black dudes, they don't like doing that shit. White guys, we're all like, yeah, well, I said we. Yeah, black dudes, they don't like doing that shit. White guys, we're all like, yeah, well, I said we. Yeah, but not me.
He's white. He's white, Justin. See, he's white. He a black bro.
Hey, man.
That was natural.
I officially just stamped Myron as white.
Yeah.
What you're looking at now is the magazine Knowledge, October 7th, 1961, number 27. The new color magazine, which grows into an encyclopedia. Included in the white or Caucasiform group, bottom right corner, is the Ethiopic race, Ethiopian or Ethiopia, Somaliland.
Ethiopia, Africa's ancient kingdom, has been shrouded in mystery since the beginning of recorded history. Ethiopia is located on a high mountainous plateau in northeastern Africa, a region remote from the rest of the world. In ancient times, Ethiopians were continuously at war with plundering bands of invaders, but their willingness to fight turned back all enemies. As a result, the peoples of Ethiopia, who are predominantly Aryan, are free and independent. They are proud of having the longest continuous history of any Christian nation in the world. The boundaries of modern Ethiopia and Eritrea closely match those of ancient Abyssinia. The country lies in the northeastern corner of Africa. On the northeast is the Red Sea. To the west is the Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. On the south are Kenya and Somalia, and on the east are French and British Somaliland. The fact that Ethiopia is primarily populated by a people of Caucasian ancestry makes it unique among other African nations. There are over 100 different tribes and races within the country. Although dark in complexion, most of the people are Caucasian and are descended from the ancient Hamites and Semites. The fact that Ethiopia is primarily populated by a people of Caucasian ancestry makes it unique among other African nations. There are over 100 different tribes and races within the country. Although dark in complexion, most of the people are Caucasian and are descended from the ancient Hamites and Semites.
And last but not least, we have Wikipedia's Ethiopiid race, with an image of a Somali man, Somali tribe, Northeast Africa, white stock. They love to tell us that black people sold other black people into slavery, but they leave out the part that these same black slavers are classified as white in America and Europe. You can't have it both ways.
Repercussions of slavery. I can go back generations, no slaves. Granted, when we first got here, yeah. But my family understood it's bad. Matter of fact, my family fought and died in the Civil War. Yeah, I know you're probably happy about that. But anyways, should we hold black people, should you suffer the repercussions of slavery? Or did you forget that black people in Africa actually sold other tribes, other black people to the white people? Or did you forget that black people in Africa actually sold other tribes, other black people to the white people?
The Moors were originally Canaanites from Palestine, known by the Greeks as Phoenicians. Later it became an umbrella term incorporating multiple different ethnic groups living throughout North Africa and practicing the religion of Islam. In Book 4, page 291 of Procopius's Histories of the Wars, he wrote the following on the origins of the people originally called Moors. Hercules in Calypia was a son of the earth, and in latter times those who removed from Phoenicia with Dido came to the inhabitants of Libya as to kinsmen, and they willingly allowed them to found and hold Carthage. But as time went on, Carthage became a powerful and populous city, and a battle took place between them and their neighbors, who, as has been said, had come from Palestine before them, and are called Moors at the present time. And the Carthaginians defeated them and compelled them to live a very great distance away from Carthage. The original Moors, who were Canaanites from Palestine, were descendants of Ham. The land of Canaan, also known as Palestine, and now known as modern Israel, was once under the control of Ham's descendants through his son Canaan, and was full of dark olive-skinned black people. Both the Torah and the historical record confirm this fact.
I am Canaanim in Israel. I go American and I help with the people black in America.
I want to come to America now.
أنا كنعاني. أنا من إسرائيل كنعاني. أنا أحب أساعد الشعب الأسمر في أمريكا.
عبري. חברי, מה העם שלך? אני מהעם כנענים. גרים פה. יש אנשים 500. העם פה כנענים? יש, מהעם.
We have a little Canaanite boy, and he is with the donkey, and he's taking care of his sheep. A responsible young man. They're goats, and one of them's got great big horns. I hope he doesn't hit me. This is what we're called.
Move in some, Dad. Move in some. I don't have my wide angle. I can't get the
Okay. How help me? Now, how am I now?
I can't see.
Right, people are in Israel. Yes, indeed. Near Jerusalem, where Rahab was. Near Jericho. Some goats here with some long horns. Oh, let me get out of the way here. Can you get?
Page 102. Travels in the Interior of Africa, Mungo Park. Before the Arabian conquest, about the middle of the 7th century, all of the inhabitants of Africa, whether they were descended from Numidians, Phoenicians, Carthaginians, Romans, Vandals, or Goths, were comprehended under the general name of Morai, or Moors. All these nations were converted to the religion of Muhammad during the Arabian Empire under the caliphs. Chapter 1. The Guinea Coast. Slave ships enslaving. George Francis Dow. Not long after the Gulf of Guinea was discovered by the Portuguese navigators, and at least 2 decades before Columbus sailed from Palos, a slave market was set up at Lisbon, at which Negroes from the Guinea coast were sold to anyone who would buy. It was the Moors who had told the Portuguese of the black-skinned people living in great numbers to the south of the Great Desert, a race cursed of God and predestined as slaves. Page 98. Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Ivan van Sertima. Slavery was aggravated by the rather distorted demands of capitalism. Rulers in the Sudan were often ready and willing to comply because of the money involved. Apart from this, they conceived of themselves as possessing ethnicities different from the people they sold. The 18th century saw not only the economic ascendancy of Europe, but a great devaluation of African humanity south of the Sahara. And according to a recent writer, while the Turks, Arabs, and Berbers would marry their daughters off to European slaves, marriage to a man of the Sudan, slave or free, was considered denigrating. Now here in this passage, where the author is speaking about the Sudan, he is not referring to the modern countries of Sudan and South Sudan, which were once collectively called Nubia, but to the geographic region to the south of the Sahara, stretching from West Africa to Central and Eastern Africa, known by its Arabic name Bilad al-Sudan, the land of the blacks, or Negro land. Introduction. Page Roman numeral XI. Tipu-Tip and the East African Slave Trade. Leda Farrant. His vanity would have been flattered by Stanley's description of their first meeting, but for one detail, the mention of his negroid complexion. Tipu-Tip was very touchy on this subject. He considered himself a pure Arab, and the fact that anyone should notice that his complexion and features betrayed some African blood annoyed him intensely. In fact, he inherited his negroid features from an African great-great-grandmother. Let's take a quick look at Tipu-Tip's family tree. In Arab culture, lineage is traced through the male line, as it is in Israelite culture. We can see that 4 generations back, there is a single unnamed African woman in Tipu-Tip's family tree, making him 1/8 African and 7/8 Arab. All of his male ancestors are Arab men. Now, those are either some powerful African genetics, or is it that the original Arabs shared a similar phenotype to other groups on the African continent? Remember what we previously read from James Pritchard's Researches into the Physical History of Mankind. But we ought not entirely to pass by the circumstance that the Abyssinians, though of Arabian origin, have a dark olive complexion in Africa, or those instances in which it appears that the genuine descendants of Arabs are nearly black. Now let us continue. Hamid bin Muhammad, later nicknamed Tipu-Tip, was therefore almost justified in considering himself a full-blooded Arab gentleman, despite his negroid features. He certainly behaved like an Arab, but he was perhaps a little more insistent in demanding respect from all who met him than the average Arab trader. His narrative is frequently peppered with the words, "They treated me with great respect," and one soon gets the impression that this powerful man suffered from at least one inferiority complex, which perhaps explains his wish to be recognized as the benefactor of all the explorers who passed through his territories. In those days, an Arab would consider it a great slight to be mistaken for an African. Once again, for those that love to say that black people sold black people into slavery to white people, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, both of these men are classified as white. These are the word games that they play. They are only black when it is convenient, and they consider themselves of possessing different ethnicities than those that were sold.
Repercussions of slavery. I can go back generations. No slaves. Granted, when we first got here, yeah. But my family understood. It's bad. Matter of fact, my family fought and died in the Civil War. Yeah, I know you're probably happy about that. But anyways, should we hold black people, you Should you suffer the repercussions of slavery? Or did you forget that black people in Africa actually sold other tribes, other black people, to the white people? Or did you forget that black people in Africa actually sold other tribes, other black people, to the white people?
The Encyclopedia Americana, complete in 30 volumes, 1829-1949, New York, Chicago, Americana Corporation, Africa, page 217, Social Conflicts. Warfare and headhunting have been the social conflicts, both now controlled by European governments. The greatest military organizations were those of the Maasai in East Africa and of the Zulu in the South. In Dahomey, West Africa, women called Amazons formed part of the standing army. Slavery was due to the raids of Arabs and Hamites on Negro communities. A form of domestic slavery existed among the Negroes themselves. The slaves were prisoners of war, criminals, and those who could not pay their debts to other members of the tribe. Domestic. Origin. Late Middle English, from French, domestique, from Latin, domesticus, from domus, house. Domestic. Adjective. 1. Relating to the running of a home or to family relations, domestic chores, domestic violence. Of or for use in a home rather than an industrial or office environment, domestic appliances. 2. Existing or occurring inside a particular country, not foreign or international. The current state of U.S. domestic affairs. The Encyclopedia Americana, complete in 30 volumes, 1829-1949, New York, Chicago, Americana Corporation, Africa, page 217, Social Conflicts. Warfare and headhunting have been the social conflicts, both now controlled by European governments. The greatest military organizations were those of the Maasai in East Africa and of the Zulu in the South. In Dahomey, West Africa, women called Amazons formed part of the standing army. Slavery was due to the raids of Arabs and Hamites on Negro communities. Slavery was due to the raids of Arabs and Hamites on Negro communities. The American Journal of Sociology, Volume 11, September 1905, Number 2, The Negro Race and European Civilization, Paul S. Reinsch, The University of Wisconsin. The Negro race may be studied in 4 sets of conditions: in their original state in the forest of Central Africa, as a mixed race under the control of the Arab and Hamite races of the northern Sudan, living side by side with a white population in respect to which they occupy a socially inferior position as in South Africa and North America, and in a few isolated communities which enjoy rights of self-government based upon European models as in Haiti and in the French Antilles. A correct understanding of any part of the Negro question demands a review of the situation of the Negro under all these varying conditions, because only through a comparison of the aboriginal characteristics of the Negro with the qualities acquired through contact with other races and civilizations can we form a just estimate of his relative capacity for progress. There was an agreement between the Arabs and Hamites to sell the children of Yasharal to the sons of Japhet. This has been extensively documented in Western historical literature. the sons of Japhet traded guns and other manufactured goods from Europe in exchange for slaves, gold, ivory, and other goods from the African continent. The European guns gave the Arabs and Hamites the upper hand over the children of Yasharal and enabled them to overcome any resistance that they would encounter while raiding the Negro villages. Members of all three false religious systems, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, participated in the destruction and enslavement of the children of Yasharal. Who is the progenitor of the Negroes? Zondervan Pictorial Bible Dictionary. Japheth, Hebrew, Japheth, God will enlarge. Genesis chapter 9, verse 27. A son of Noah. He was older than Shem. Genesis chapter 10, verse 21, but comes third in some list of the three sons. Genesis chapter 6, verse 10, chapter 9, verse 18. Shem, however, is usually named first. Genesis chapter 5, verse 32, chapter 11, verse 10. Japheth and his wife were saved in the ark. Genesis chapter 7, verse 7. He aided Shem in covering the naked body of their drunken father. Genesis chapter 9, verses 20 to 27. He is the progenitor of the more remote northern peoples of southeastern Europe. That he was to occupy the tents of Shem is thought to refer to the conquest of the Greeks, who were descendants of Japheth. This he did during the days of Assyrian power. He had 7 sons, whose descendants occupied the isles of the Gentiles, Hellenes or Greeks, Genesis chapter 10, verse 5, an area including Asia Minor and Upper Greece. 1 down. Ham, Hebrew, Ham, perhaps Hot. 1. The youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. Genesis chapter 10, verses 6 to 20. His indecency when his father lay drunken brought a curse upon Canaan. Genesis chapter 9, verses 20 to 27. 2. A city of the Zuzim, east of the Jordan. Genesis chapter 14, verse 5. This is not the same word as the son of Noah. 3. The descendants of the original Ham. Psalms chapter 78, verse 51, chapter 105, verse 23, chapter 106, verse 22. In these passages, Ham is used as another name for Egypt, as representing Ham's principal descendants. 2 out of 3 down. Shem, Hebrew, Shem, Greek, Sem, name, fame. Second son of Noah and progenitor of the Semitic race. Was born 98 years before the flood. Genesis chapter 11, verse 10. And lived 600 years, outliving his descendants for 9 generations, excepting Eber and Abraham. In the racial prophecy which Noah made after the event of his drunkenness, Genesis chapter 9, verses 25 to 27, he mentions Jehovah, God of Shem. The 3 great monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all had Semitic origins, and Noah added concerning Japheth that his descendants would dwell in the tents of Shem, indicating that the Aryan peoples to a large extent have derived their civilization from the Semites. In the Table of Nations, Genesis chapter 10, Shem is given 5 sons, of whom Arphaxad, King James Version, Arphaxad, was clearly an individual, and the others are peoples or progenitors of peoples. For example, Lud refers to the Lydians in Asia Minor. Elam points to the Elamites who lived east of the Tigris River. Aram means the Arameans or the Syrians who lived in Syria and Mesopotamia, and Asher is Assyria. Scoffers pointed out a century ago that Asher is mentioned also in the Hamite list, chapter 10, verse 11. But archaeologists have found Hamitic artifacts under Semitic ruins of Assyrian cities. Shem, Ham, and Japheth probably differed only as brothers do, but their descendants are quite distinct. The further you read back into history, especially history written by European authors, you begin to realize that the educated among them have always known and categorized Semites as Negroes. This recent amnesia among them was self-inflicted. They have chosen not only to dwell in the tents of Shem, but also to assume his identity, specifically the identity of the children of Yasharal. And he has done this in tandem with the children of Edom. In The Races of the Old World, a manual of ethnology, Charles Brace wrote the following about the Semitic Negro on page 310. A large portion of the brown and black tribes of northern Africa, as has been shown, belong to the same family as that which first originated commerce, which invented the alphabet, produced the sublime Hebrew poetry and Arabian science, and which has through many ages in one of its branches the special medium fitted by Providence for transmitting the most elevated religious inspirations to mankind, and in which the divine manifestation of Jesus Christ was made. The Semitic Negro can certainly never be considered by worshippers under a Semitic religion as inferior in blood to themselves. If it wasn't clear, it should be clear by now that the progenitor of the Negroes is Shem. The paternal bloodline of the Edomites, and why many of us believe that the Y-DNA haplogroup E-M215 E1B1B is the most likely candidate. In the Torah, lineage for all people groups is defined by the male line. It doesn't matter who your mother is or extended family. If your father is not of the line of Yaakov, you are not of the bloodline of Yasharal. It doesn't matter how many Israelite relatives you have in your autosomal DNA, or even if your mother is of the line of Yaakov. Because Yaakov and Esau were twin brothers, it is logical to assume that their descendants would belong to closely related Y-DNA haplogroups. Among modern Jews, there are multiple Y-DNA haplogroup lineages that are not closely related to one another. Since many of us who have been labeled African American, Black, and Negro believe that we are the true bloodline descendants of Yaakov, and that the overwhelming majority of us, 65%, belong to Y-DNA haplogroup E-V38 E1B1A, and that Esau is among modern Jews, we would expect to see a corresponding Y-DNA lineage among them. And this is exactly what we see in the Y-DNA of modern Jews. 20 to 30% of all modern Jews belong to Y-DNA haplogroup E-M215 E1B1B. This is the sibling haplogroup to our E-V38 E1B1A Y-DNA haplogroup. The key phrase to understanding who the congregation of Satan is referring to is the phrase, I have loved you. Hazan, Revelation chapter 2 verse 9. I know your works and your pressure and poverty, yet you are rich, and the blasphemy of those who say they are Yahudim and are not, but are a congregation of Satan. Hazan, Revelation chapter 3 verse 9. See, I'm giving up those of the congregation of Satan who say they are Yahudim and are not, but lie. See, I am making them come and worship before your feet, and to know that I have loved you. Malachi, chapter 1, verses 1 to 3. The message of the word of Yahuwah to Yasharal by Malachi. I have loved you, said Yahuwah, but you ask, in what way have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, declares Yahuwah? And I have loved Jacob, but I have hated Esau, and have laid waste his mountains and his inheritance for the jackals of the wilderness. The Edomites, Nabateans, and Saracens are not three separate people groups. They are one people known by three different names during different periods of history. The Edomite tribes, though sharing an overarching culture, were diverse and widespread throughout Arabia and elsewhere. Genetics, geography, language, and culture are all interconnected. The evidence that all three of these groups are one and the same can be argued in the following. All three spoke closely related and mutually intelligible Semitic languages, like the relationship between Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. They shared an evolving culture. You can think of the latter cultures as subclades of the original Edomite culture, the core remaining the same while picking up unique features over the course of time. They all lived in the region of Arabia Petraea, the region where Quranic Arabic and Islam developed and was spread from. The spread of Islamic culture and the Arabic language is tied to the Saracen Empire and the Y-DNA haplogroup EM215. Strabo, Geography, Book 16, Chapter 2, Paragraph 34, page 281. As for Judea, its western extremities towards Cassius are occupied by the Idumeans and by the lake. The Idumeans are Nabateans, but owing to a sedition, they were banished from there, joined the Judeans, and shared in the same customs with them. The greater part of the region near the sea is occupied by Lake Serbanus, and by the country continuous with the lake as far as Jerusalem. For this city is also near the sea, for as I have already said, it is visible from the seaport of Viope. Strabo, Geography, Book 16, Chapter 4, Paragraph 21, page 351. The first people above Syria who dwell in Arabia Felix are the Nabateans and the Sabaeans. They often overran Syria before they became subject to the Romans, but at present both they and the Syrians are subject to the Romans. The metropolis of the Nabateans is Petra. The History of Arabia, Ancient and Modern, Volume 2 of 2, by Andrew Crichton. Chapter 1. With the elevation of the House of Abbas, the family of Muhammad ascended once more the pulpit and the throne of their ancestor. And so long as the Saracen power continued to exist, they ruled the greater part of the Muslim world. The Historical Geography of Arabia, the Reverend Charles Foster, Volume 2, Section 5, Settlements of Esau, page 15. The Saracens derived their name from Sarah, the wife of Abraham, and that the name was properly and originally the national appellative of Sarah's lineal descendants through Esau. We know that lineage in the Torah is traced through the paternal line, and you cannot be Yasharal if your paternal line does not lead back to Yaakov. There are many among Yasharal that are not of the line of Jacob. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Dante Fortson, a popular YouTuber among many of the community of Yasharal, is he an Edomite? And if he is, should we be concerned?
Identical twins, semi-identical twins, fraternal twins. We know Jacob and Esau were very much probably not identical twins based on the description. So that leaves semi-identical and fraternal. Is it possible that some of the people we're seeing defined as Israelites because they have DNA in common with descendants of the transatlantic slave trade? Is it possible that some of them may actually be Esau? Because I know a lot of people like to be politically correct and say, well, they have the same DNA. We know it's not exactly the same, but they have the same markers and, all this stuff. I'm not a DNA guy. But they're saying that those people are Israel just as much as we are Israel. But is it possible that one group is Esau and one group is Israel? I believe we're Israel. Is it possible that one group is Esau and one group is Israel? And the reason that there are genetic similarities is because they come from semi-identical or fraternal twins. Wouldn't it be reasonable to conclude that if fraternal twins share 50% DNA and semi-identical twins share 75% DNA, if you have two lineages of people that exist over time, you would find common or similar DNA or haplogroups? I don't understand how this works. Again, I'm not the DNA guy. Feel free to fill me in on what you think is happening. Why is it that the people over there in the land now, the 1948 people, have DNA similarities to descendants of the transatlantic slave trade? Are we all one people? Or is it a chance that somebody is Esau and somebody is Jacob? So that's the question I'm going to end this with. I want you guys to check that out. Haplogroup. We're going to talk about these. That's why I'm going to have Teo Ministries on and Sister E. We're going to talk about haplogroups, what that possibly means. We're going to look at a map that you can put your haplogroup in and see the map, see on the map where your haplogroup traveled from. So now this right here, mine is L1B1A on the maternal side, and it shows that right here is haplogroup L. If every person living today could trace his or her maternal line back over thousands of generations, all of our lines would meet at a single woman who lived in Eastern Africa between 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. Though she was one of perhaps thousands of women alive at the time, only the diverse branches of her haplogroup has survived to today. The story of your maternal line begins with her. So now, my maternal line dates back all the way to East Africa. Right here. So yeah, we're going to get into that. Origins and migrations of haplogroup L1B1A. It says 1 in 320 23andMe customers share your haplogroup assignment. So I don't know if that's rare or not. I don't know how many customers 23andMe has. 1 in 320 could be a very high occurrence. It could be a very low occurrence. But anyway, we're not going to get into this. We're going to talk about the Bantu expansion, hopefully a little bit with Teo Ministries. They've done more work on the Bantu expansions and stuff than I have. So we're going to get into that next time. So if you guys want to do some research on L1B1A to get a head start on that, you're welcome to. And then my paternal is going to be E-L29. We're going to talk about that. And I'll read this right here. Haplogroup A. Now, see, this is what I was trying to understand. Teo Ministries explained this to me a little bit, but we're going to go back over this because I was a little bit unsure. But yeah, it says the haplogroup A. The stories of all your paternal lines can be tracked back over 275,000 years to just one man, the common ancestor of haplogroup A. Current evidence suggests he was one of thousands of men who lived in Eastern Africa at the time. However, while his male line descendants passed down their Y chromosomes generation after generation, the lineages from the other men died out. Over time, his lineage alone gave rise to all other haplogroups that exist today. Interesting. E, haplogroup DEM145. Okay, so they were trying to explain to me. Yeah, I'll let you guys. I'm not going to try to confuse nothing. I'm going to let them explain it. The cult that has been spreading misinformation. And unfortunately, there are a lot of silly people that follow this cult, and they don't go fact check what is being said by the cult leaders. And so I think it's important that we hold them accountable, because I believe Berean TV would agree with me when I say that lying by, or let's see, omitting the evidence, lying by omission. Yeah. If you omit the evidence, if you omit any part of the evidence, you are lying by omission. I assume Brother Berean still agrees with me on that. So we're gonna look at some stuff. So today I got an alert from 23andMe. I'm not gonna keep you guys here long, because like I said, I'm not the DNA guy. Go watch parts 1 and 2 if you haven't seen it yet. There will be a part 4 coming soon, just given the light of everything going on. I just went and checked. And so the alert was right here. It said new next to this. It's disappeared now because I had to leave my office, come to the house and sign back in. And so the new alert is gone, but right here, they've updated my results. 89.8% sub-Saharan African, 77.2% West African, 47% Nigerian. But they added this note, Igbo people. And I think that's interesting given the light of what's been going on. Other people have mentioned that my haplogroup is E1B1B. I believe I'm using that right. Like I said, I'm not the DNA guy. Other people have mentioned that my haplogroup is E1B1B. I believe I'm using that right. Like I said, I'm not the DNA guy. So again, I'm not trying to educate you guys on DNA. I'm talking about my personal DNA. I'm going to show you guys some history and stuff that I've uncovered. I'm the history guy. If you want to know about history, talk to me about history. If you want to know about DNA, I'm going to refer you to somebody else. And I keep stressing that because a lot of you keep asking me about DNA, and I keep referring you to other people. I am not the DNA guy, once again. So I'm not going to argue with anybody or debate anybody about DNA.